All right, folks, it's time for our regular news meeting and everything along those lines. So it's definitely time for us to be talking about what's going on in the world and around the world. So we'll be definitely doing that here on Pod TV and seeing what folks are saying about a number of these stories and along those lines. U.S. and Iran exchange taunts on attacks imperil fragile ceasefire. So Iran war news headset says ceasefire is not over as tensions rise in the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz attacks push U.S. Iran ceasefire to the brink. So, human to human hantavirus transmission suspected on cruise ship. So, hantavirus cluster linked to cruise ship travel multi countries. So, some people are asking, what is hantavirus and how does it spread? So, hantavirus may have spread between passengers on cruise ship, is what the WHO is saying. You just can't get the hearing hantavirus understandably. An explosion at a firework plant in China kills at least 26 people and injures dozens of others. Romanian government collapses after losing a no confidence vote. So Romanian Prime Minister Ili Bolajan's government toppled in a no confidence vote. Romanian pro-European coalition collapses after Prime Minister fails the no confidence vote. Pentagon chief Hedges says the U.S.-Iran ceasefire not over. So that is something that folks are talking about. Dangerous escalation. The world condemns Iran after attacks on UAE. U.S. Defense Chief Hedges says ceasefire is not over. So that is something folks are talking about as well. And Alberta separatists submit signature for independence referendum. Alberta separatist group says it has enough signatures to trigger a referendum on leaving Canada. So Alberta separatists say they have enough signatures to trigger independence movement. So Alberta separatists say they have enough signatures for referendum on leaving Canada. So there might be a move for one of the provinces to leave Canada and all along those lines. So that is something that people are talking about as well. So there's definitely uh, thoughts around that and all in that space. So definitely a lot's going on in that way and around the world in that sense. So lots going on in that kind of way. Cars ram into crowd in Leipzig city center. So two killed and many injured after a car driven into crowd in German city of Leipzig. So car rams crowd in Leipzig, two dead and dozens injured. Germany news, Leipzig ramming suspect to appear in the court. So this was a car ram taken in that place. UK police arrest two for Golders Green Iranian Memorial War wall arson. So UK counter-terrorism police investigate arson at former London synagogue as Prime Minister issues warning to Iran. So this is something going on as well. UK counterterrorism police probe arson attack at former London synagogue. Police breaks out at form Fire breaks out at former London synagogue in the latest attack against UK Jews. And what Modi's big win in Indian state elections could mean for its democracies. Modi's BJP wins West Bengal state election for the first time. Narendra Modi has extended his grip on India. So that is something folks are talking about as well. And economists are predicting Reserve Bank of Australia interest rate hike. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. There is an interest rate hike that people are paying attention to, and all along those lines. So Australia's central bank set to cool its heels after rapid fire rate hikes. So RBA signals pause after delivering third straight rate hike. So looks like there might be a rate hike in Australia. Taiwan President Li Ching-te visit Eswatini despite Chinese president pressure. So Taiwan's 12 remaining diplomatic allies. Taiwan's Lei returns from Eswatini trip amid China objections. So this is something that folks are talking about as well. So a lot's going on in that space. Taiwan could learn from Ukraine. Informally, connections are growing. So MOFA strengthens drone diplomacy, and Taiwan's drone exports in Q1 exceed last year's totals and all along those lines. So that is definitely something that folks are paying attention to in that part of the world and everything like that. Trump on the troop reduction in Germany. Trump Germany troop cut show limits of NATO efforts to keep U.S. on board. German defense minister laments long-range strike gap caused by planned U.S. drawdown. So the loss of 5,000 U.S. troops in Germany is just the tip of the challenge facing Europe. So that's something that folks are talking about as well, as Berlin faces a missile gap after Trump's troop cuts. Zelensky condemns the Russian cynicism over parade truce as attack kills five. Zelensky condemns Russian utter cynicism as it strikes ahead of truce. Zelensky slams Russia's utter cynicism as strike kills five in Ukraine before announcing ceasefire. 6 takeaways from the European political community in Armenia. Armenia hosts a historic European Union summit as the country charts a course away from Russia. So they're trying to get away from Russia and all along those lines. So Europe must not neglect democratic security amid defense efforts, says the Council of Europe Secretary General in Yerevan. So European summit in Yerevan sends a signal to Central Asia. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. Sudan accuses Ethiopia and UAE of orchestrating drone attacks on airports. So Sudan accuses UAE and Ethiopia of involved in Khartoum airport drone strikes. Australia and Japan signal critical minerals and energy deals. Japan Prime Minister says Iran war oil crisis have enormous impact in Asia Pacific. Australia, Japan strengthens critical mineral ties. Japan and Australia agree to deepen cooperation on energy defense and critical mineral ties. Russia boosts oil exports as value strikes Ukraine war ahead. Poisonous black rain falls in Russia as Ukraine strikes oil facilities. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Australia begins hearing onto Bondi Beach attack and rising anti-Semitism and everything like that. So that's something that we're talking about. So definitely a lot going on in the world and everything like that. In Russia, Victory Day is starting to feel like defeat. Russia limits mobile internet ahead of scaled-back World War II victory parade. Zelensky hints Ukrainian drones can menace Putin's Victory Day parade. Putin will host a scaled-back parade in Red Square this year amid mounting pressures and threats. So this is definitely something that is going on in the news as well. Israeli attack kills dozens with days in Lebanon despite ceasefire. Netanyahu has pledged to finish the job against Hezbollah. It's a promise he can't deliver on. Search is underway for 2 U.S. Army soldiers missing in Morocco. So definitely, and one missing U.S. soldier jumped into water to try to save another. Search is continuing that case and all along those lines. Here to bring Rick Rosner in, and he's going to have to take over for a while because I've got a staff meeting that I'm going to. How's it going, Ray? Got to have you take over for a while if you'll read stuff, and I'll pop back in. But I've got a quick staff meeting and everything. But if you'll take over from Drudge, that would be appreciated.
Sure, I'm going to go there right now. So gas is national average $4.48 a gallon. So unless a miracle happens, we'll hit $4.50 sometime this week, which is $4.50 is different from the $2 a gallon gas that Trump promised us. Trump actually did get gas under $2 a gallon back in 2020. And that was because the whole world was shut down with COVID. It dropped to $1.77 a gallon, national average, when nobody was driving anywhere because we were all at home trying not to get sick. Okay, let's take a look here. The headlines on Drudge: Iran taunts the U.S. We're just getting started. 10 attacks since the ceasefire. Let's see. Just a few stocks driving the S&P 500 rally triggers dot-com bubble flashbacks. Back in 2000, everybody, including myself, thought we were going to become millionaires off the internet. If you had a website, then that would guarantee you that people would flock to your site, and somehow that would turn into a ton of money. And that didn't work out, and a bunch of web commerce enterprises collapsed in 2000. And then out of the ashes, the modern internet arose, and we got Google. And once we had Google, everything took off. But before that, everybody got wiped out, like pets.com. All right, what else we got here? Met Gala was yesterday, and there was a lot of complaining. The main sponsor was, what's his name? Jeff Bezos, the Amazon multi-billionaire, maybe second richest guy in the world, and his fiancee, Lauren Sanchez. And people complained that it was a lot of people stayed away, apparently, not the Kardashians, they came, because as a protest of it being like a billionaire built event. Sarah Paulson, the actor, protested. She showed up there, but she wore a dollar bill as a face mask, like a Batman type half mask. Breastplates were huge at the Met Gala. That is a molded piece that goes over a woman's chest that has these, like, plastic boob shapes, including nipples. There were a lot of those, including on a Kardashian, on Kim Kardashian. What else? Let's see. Here's an article with the most heinous looks. Katy Perry showed up wearing a mirrored fencer mask, so she looked like Daft Punk. Like you couldn't see her face, and apparently she couldn't see through the mask and had to be walked up the stairs because she was blind. All right, then there's a bunch of stuff that people didn't like what people were wearing. All right, let's see what else we got. As you'd expect, The Devil Wears Prada won the box office over the weekend. Oh, Delta Airlines. Fuel is costing out the butt. It caused Spirit to go out of business. And Delta is now not going to give you your little snack, your little packet of pretzels, and your beverage. No beverages for you if your flight is under 350 miles. So if you're taking Delta from LA to Vegas or back, got to bring your own snacks and drinks. All right, where else can we go to find stuff? Trump approval is at 39%, with disapproval at 57.7%. According to poll, it's down to 38.8%, with disapproval up to 57.6%, which ties his biggest net disapproval of his second term of, approval minus disapproval gives you negative 18.8%. And if you look back at the approval ratings of presidents back to Harry Truman in 1946, leading up to the midterms, Trump is tied for second worst. Truman, 1946, was at 33%. And during that year, the Democrats, he was a Democratic president, they lost, I believe, 31 seats in the House. And then he's tied with Bush in 2006. And in that election, Bush was a Republican president, and the Republicans lost 55 seats in the House. And Trump is doing all sorts of trying to force, trying to encourage. Well, he's encouraging red states to gerrymander to make for more Republican-leaning districts. But I don't think it's going to save him, because the Republicans can only afford to lose 2 seats in the House. If they lose more than 2 seats, they lose control. And with a president with this historically bad level of disapproval, he's going to lose way more than 2 seats, even with gerrymandering. I think people who follow these things say that the Republicans are on track to lose 30 seats, which means in January, if that happens, and you can't even bet on it anymore, at least on my online bookie, that, you know, they don't let you bet on sure things, because that's not the bookie business. If and when they lose control of the House, then Mike Johnson isn't the leader of the House and the House Majority Leader anymore. He doesn't run the House. Some Democrat will. And that brings up the threat of the Democrats voting to impeach Trump for the 3rd time. You might remember that impeachment has 2 parts. Several presidents have been impeached. Lincoln's vice president, who became president, Andrew Johnson, he got impeached. That's where the House holds a vote and says that you should go on trial for crappy stuff you've done as president. And then the Senate holds a trial, and then they vote, and you need a 2/3 majority of the Senate to vote a president out of office, which has never happened. And Trump's Clinton, wait, did he get impeached? Yeah, Clinton got impeached, right? For lying about having sex with Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, Clinton got impeached in 1998. And then he went on trial in the Senate, and they did not vote to kick him out of office. And he actually ended up being more popular after the impeachment trial, because most Americans thought it was an unfair trial, that you shouldn't get kicked out of the presidency for lying about BJ's. And then Trump got impeached twice. And the second time was after he encouraged the January 6th riots. And in the Senate, 57 senators voted to kick him out, but they needed 67 to have a 2/3 majority, so he didn't get kicked out of office. And he'll probably get impeached again sometime in 2027. And they'll hold a trial in the Senate, and the Senate probably almost certainly won't vote him out of office. That's the way it goes. Hey, you guys, what do you got? Dasha?
What do we have?
In the world, I've just been babbling about what's on Drudge and what's going on with Trump's approval ratings, which have he's down to 38.8% net approval, which means that the Republicans will almost certainly lose the House, which means that Trump will get impeached again, but not voted out of office.
Yeah, that's it's just another circus,
Right.
Circus, and that's it. It's a waste of time. And the thing is, they have a lot of important things to take place in Washington to work on, but nobody wants to work on them. We discussed
for the past 4 years, maybe 6 years, almost nothing has gotten done in Congress. And there are conservatives who say, great, the less that gets done, the better. But that ignores stuff like disaster responses.
All right, let's look at one disaster in 2032, which isn't too far around. Social Security runs out of money in the United States. The trust fund goes bankrupt. I mean, seriously, it doesn't go bankrupt. It just runs out of money, which means everybody on Social Security is going to get a pay cut about 24%. Does Congress address that? Absolutely not. Well, listen, another one, the national debt, $39 trillion, easily solved by reinstituting the federal estate tax and dropping the unified credit. Will Congress address that? Absolutely not. Their fiscal irresponsibility is off the charts. So instead, 1 trillion a year, which is almost the entire budget of Canada, is spent on interest on the national debt. So Congress, is there anybody up there that is doing anything about anything at all? No, Trump's doing everything, by the way. And he gets all the press, he gets all the wonderful thing, and you got 535 impotent congressmen up there, and it seems to me all they're doing is trying to get reelected. Why?
Well, not all of them. For the number of people from the House and Senate deciding not to get reelected is the second highest in history, which is a sign
but
of
the
how bad
thing is, if you're going to run for office, at least do something or pretend you're doing something instead of going up there and doing absolutely nothing. Now, we'll invite some, to come on our shows, but no, they don't want to do it. It's a kind of a do nothing Congress, and Trump does everything. So you can hate him or like him, but at least he's doing something. You have
so
535
he outlawed
people
buffaloes. Yes, yesterday he outlawed bison on federal land. So
who did? Donald?
Yeah, he said he's kicking the bison, the buffaloes. Off of, they graze. They're giant, basically.
No, I know what bisons are.
Right,
they're
almost a national symbol, and he says, "Now you guys he's gonna somehow kick them off of that they can't eat grass on."
They're in Yellowstone. Well, executive leadership in the U.S. is horrible, and also I don't know if Sasha knows. There's Webster University had a nationally ranked chess program for decades. Okay. And you know what happened? The new president came in, and I looked at his CV. Here's what he has. He has a bachelor's degree in Rollins, which, by the way, is an expensive private school. Then he went to University of Richmond and got an MBA, which is another expensive private school. Then he went to St. Louis University, got a PhD in public policy, which, by the way, talk about one of the weakest PhDs, get one in public policy. And so now the salesman who comes from obviously wealthy family has become president of Webster University. He's a soccer player. Seriously. He doesn't know anything chess. He thinks chess is tiddlywinks. He's never played one competitive game in his life. So what did he do? He eliminated the Webster chess team, one of the best nationally ranked chess teams in the world.
Why?
For the last X amount of years. Because you think academicians are smart, Rick. They're not. Go look at the average IQ of somebody's got a PhD in academia. It's like 138. This isn't super smart, Rick. Not any stretch.
Yeah, but that is a sweet spot for existing in the world. Above.
Well. The thing is, okay, you have to imagine chess is an intellectual sport. That's all it is. It's a game. It's a puzzle. All right. But people that are, how do you say, puzzle idiots, which he is, decides he doesn't like puzzles. I've had to face this all the way back in 1976 with the University of South Florida, who donated all their funds, back then it was like 6,000, to the Gay Coalition because they thought that would help, and their basketball team because it's world renowned. As you know, University of South Florida, world renowned basketball team, and University of South Florida thinks they're the Harvard of the South. These people are delusional. You know what they're called? They're called scholastic administrators, and there are lots of them. And talk about a group of people that look to get a job and hold on to their job. That's it. So Webster dumps their
let's
their
go back
only reason for, in my opinion, for the university to exist, or even for me to tell a student about it, is because they actually had a world-class chess program for decades, and now it's completely vaporized by the administration.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Thank you, Webster University.
Let's go back to a couple of Social Security, the national debt and Social Security running out of money. So we can address those things the way we have recently.
You can fix them, actually.
All right, well, we can deal with all that stuff. We can always print more money. But that hold on, because I want to go to Sasha. In a second, which is inflationary. So that's how we'll deal with all this. We'll print more money, which will cause inflation. We're about to move into a high inflation period because of what's happening in the Gulf with the Strait of Hormuz, and so we'll get inflation numbers either on Friday or Tuesday, and we'll start seeing inflation over 4% for a few months, maybe going higher. Now, Sasha, you've said that this is a terrible time to own stocks,
I just bought a bunch.
but yeah, in a time of inflation, don't you want to be in stocks instead of cash because cash is losing value?
Rick, this market is highly manipulated, and although inflation can go much higher to 5 and even 6%, and probably wouldn't stop even there, the market can still go higher and higher and higher. The reasons are that, first of all, there is a thing called a passive investing. It means all money flowing into 401k and others are automatically, they don't require even human interaction. They are invested and reinvested into stocks. So the supply is going in, out every week, every month, and it's not stopping process. So the market is taken for granted that the new money, regardless of what's happened in Gulf or anywhere else, the money will continue to fly in and therefore prop in the stocks, and it will go on, if you want, forever or almost forever or whatever it might be. The only thing what can stop is the so-called black swan event. It's something what is not expected, something is very difficult, is probably impossible to predict, and such thing can happen very easily these days. Then it would definitely require very steep correction. The market today works this way, that normally what it works, and let's see, you have a chart and it shows the stock is rising and rising. So finally it stops at some point where it continue to rise, then it will start falling back, and then there is a event, it's sliding back, and it starts a new cycle. Today, the movements are so manipulated that they are extremely severe, can get in the middle of nowhere. It's like a normal day, market is up. All of a sudden, something Trump said, something somebody else said, all of a sudden, market is down 5% in a minute. And there is no exit strategy, because even if you have one, it's not going to work because of the severity of the movement. Same thing as on the way back. Same thing happened. Normally, stocks are going down during this first phase of this Hormuz or Iran war. So all stocks were going down every day, minus 250 points, minus 280 points, minus 355 points. Every day it's going down. So normally theory goes, as long as it stops at some point and make a little base and it starts rising, you can get in and buy stocks. Not this time in this highly manipulated market immediately goes vertically high. You have no opportunity to take a long position because it's already too late. By the time that you put your order will be executed. It's too late. The market already ran up. So this is a situation where owning stocks is extremely risky. It's always risky, you might say, but in this manipulated market, it's twice as risky as it's ever. Now, since it's an international show, I would like to point out that all this issue of American inflation and American people losing their buying power, it doesn't mean internationally even a thing, because there are more and more meetings are being held around the world without even inviting America. Nobody wants to deal with America. Nobody wants to invite America. Nobody wants to do with the bullshit that comes from dealing with America. For example, in Armenia, in Yerevan, now it's a big international forum. There is people from Asia, Europe, Canada. Prime Minister Carney is there, is doing very, very well. And all people realize they don't need America for anything. You can source all products or technology, everything what you would need. You can source in Europe, in Canada, or elsewhere. You don't need America. Let America fight its war against Iran, against Cuba, against whoever they want to fight with, and forget about it, just as it doesn't exist. That's your best strategy.
Okay. Now I'm going to change the subject so I can talk to Jatovy here. So tonight, the Oklahoma City LA series starts, and Oklahoma City Thunder favored by 16 points over the Lakers. Is there any way that the Lakers can not just get clobbered?
Nope. They won. OKC beat LA this year in every game they played by at least
all 4 games. They won by like 30 points every time. But the last 2 games were at the end of the season, where in one game LA lost Doncic and they lost Austin Reeves to muscle injuries, and so but they've got Reeves back. And Doncic is on the verge of being back. If they get both of them back, is there any chance? Nope.
OKC is just a better defensive team, and they have. I mean, you're talking about 3 people with Austin Reeves, who's a good player, but that's a poor matchup for him. Luka Doncic doesn't play defense. He can put up 40 points, but can't play defense. So you're giving up 40. So that's a mismatch. LeBron is getting old, and he's going to have trouble. So, and you just have a better all around team with OKC.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be sad for me. All right. Because in a world full of trouble, I like LA sports teams doing well. But we got the Dodgers, so we're fine. I think the Dodgers have won more games in the 21st century than any other MLB team.
They have.
Oh. All right. What else we got in the world here? Hegseth is just as he's been. He gets in little snits in front of the press, but like that's nothing new, and I don't know. Is that interesting? Oh, I mean, here's the thing: the president's only supposed to be able to go to war for 60 days without getting approval, permission from Congress, and it's been 60 days. So now Trump and Hegseth are saying, well, we're not really at war right now because there's a ceasefire. So the 60 days is over. So don't worry about
it. Well, you expect this Congress to do anything?
No, but
so, he can say whatever he wants. They'll never check him. The big thing is he's trying to steal the election now, and that's the big stuff.
Yeah, but so it's less than 6 months now until the midterms, and they've been trying to get this SAVE Act passed for months. The SAVE Act is sold to people who aren't paying attention as legislation to make sure that there's no voter fraud by requiring ID. In reality, it's a voter suppression act that requires like ridiculous levels of ID in order to vote, especially for married women who've taken their husband's last names. If you're not already registered, and maybe in some instances, even if you are, to be certified as a voter, if this act passes, you have to come up with your birth certificate with your birth name. Then you have to come up with your marriage certificate with your married name. And then you have to come up with some acceptable form of ID, like, your driver's license. Or, if you're lucky enough to have a passport, you can use your passport. If you don't have a passport, good luck getting it done before the elections, and it'll cost you $150. But the SAVE Act hasn't passed so far, and it seems like, and it doesn't look like it has the votes, because enough people, including some Republicans in Congress, think it's bullshit.
I mean, it is, but the big thing is they're doing the redistricting, like what's going on in Louisiana.
Right. So Louisiana, Louisiana's got some of the crappiest state government in the country. And they wanted to redistrict to change it from 2 districts with where there's a black majority in those districts to 1. Now they're going to redraw this crazy shape that runs through all the predominantly black neighborhoods in the whole state, and just clump all the black people together in one district. They will vote for a Democrat, and then the rest of the state will vote for Republicans. So there'll only be one rep from the Democratic Party. And then all these other red states are going to try to do the same thing. They're allowed to do it under the latest Supreme Court ruling. So all these little states, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida's doing it. In Florida, it might cost the Dems 4 seats. But if you look at the overall math across the country, there's all this gerrymandering, and it's not just the Dems. California did it in response. There might be a net pickup of 4 Republican seats. And that's not enough to save the House, because the Republicans may lose 30 seats in the House because Trump is so unpopular. And it can backfire, that if you take a bunch of districts where Republicans have a 60-40 advantage, and you chop things up, so now you have even more districts where Republicans have an advantage, but now it's 52-48 or 55-45. If people get pissed enough at the Republicans in states like Texas, they can outvote. Texas actually has more registered Democrats than registered Republicans. It's just that the Dems in Texas get discouraged and they don't show up. If enough Dems get pissed and show up, they can overwhelm some of these Republican districts.
It's just I mean, that's their plan, is to use the redistricting wars to or the gerrymandering wars to win. Then you have Trump talking about canceling the elections because he wants to redraw the maps.
So what the Republicans have to do in the next 6 months is what they did in 2024, which is make the Democrats feel hopeless. There was, the way Kamala Harris became the presidential candidate, discouraged some Democrats. The hay that the Republicans made out of that process, or lack of process, Trump didn't get many more votes in 2024 than he got in 2020. What happened is that millions of Democrats didn't show up to vote. And that's one thing, like the gerrymandering and the SAVE Act are designed to do, is to make Democrats throw up their hands and go, nothing we do matters. I'm not even going to vote. On the other hand, this time around, Trump he's only kept really one of his big campaign promises, which is he shut down the southern border. Nobody's coming over the southern border. Everything else, Trump has just like tossed to the wind. No wars. He was the peace president. And we're in the middle of this really goofy war. So the Republicans a lot of Republicans are pissed. If gas will hit $4.50 later this week, by the end of the month, it might be at $4.70, $4.75. If this continues for months, you might get a bunch of discouraged Republicans who don't show up to vote.
Well, they're not. A lot of them aren't going to vote because now you have MAGA. There's a whole civil war going on in MAGA, from Candace Owens to Tucker Carlson to even Joe Rogan. They're all falling by the wayside, attacking this administration, and then it will probably backfire.
Okay, but independents, which are like 52% of voters, the independents are people who legit, they want to go one way or another, but then they're like, they have reservations, like, they'd like to be MAGA, but then they see some of the crap Trump pulls and they're like, really? And so there's those people who pay some attention but are legitimately divided. They don't like what Trump does, but they think the Democrats are pussies who don't do anything and who are like, they get all caught up in the, where do trans people go to pee and all that bullshit. But then you also have people who pay almost no attention, who might just wake up a little bit in mid-October and start like, what's going on in the world? And so how do you grab those people? Who's going to get them?
The only way to get them is to provide a new pathway. You have to stand 10 toes down on that pathway. You have to tell them what you're for, because we all know what you're against. But you have to say what you're for, what you're going to provide. Give me another pathway. That's what the independents are looking for.
So
and
what is that pathway? You can say what you're against. You can say, well, I'm against Trump. Or you can say, I'm against AI. AI is eating up all the good jobs. And now my daughter makes money by posing, showing her butt on OnlyFans. What are you going to do about this? What can the Democrats say to that?
Well, right now, what the biggest thing is, you got to be able to speak to what the problem is. The problem isn't OnlyFans. The problem is I can't pay for food. So how are you going to work around that? And the problem is I can't pay for gas. How are we going to work around that? The problem is
what can the Democrats do about it?
Easy. It's a matter of pointing out a different strategy of dealing with the woes that people are looking at. Right now, people are looking for affordable housing. Give me an idea around affordable housing. Give me a pathway how you're going to provide that. Kamala Harris did, but then nobody wanted to stand 10 toes down with her. So everybody kind of ran away from it and shied away from it. No, go ahead and tell me why you're going to do that. You've got ideas around jobs. The unemployment numbers are ticking up. The wealth disparity is picking up. Those are things that people are upset about. Kids right now, you gotta get the younger generation involved. You've got to allow them the opportunity to be able to show and be at the table. If you do that, you've got a lot of people that will jump on board. That's what Trump tried to do at the beginning, but he didn't. He actually didn't involve young people besides just using them for their vote. You've got to be able to point out that, okay, I feel your woes and your pain. This is what I'm going to do. You say that you can't pay for food. Let's figure a way you can pay for food. We have no affordable housing. This is my plan forth for affordable housing. You can't pay for gas. This is my plan for working around the gas, trying to push car make or build it.
We got 2.5 more years of Trump. How can the Democrats make the case that they can make a difference? Because
you start that now. Right now, the battle is going to be trying to not really out Trump. What it is you have to be able to out message him. The only group that's doing that right now is Iran.
Yeah, and they're a bunch of dickheads, and yeah, they can put out all the AI Lego, AI videos where Lego characters are making fun of Trump. That AOC can get out there and talk about this and that, and the people who don't pay attention just will look at AOC and they'll think Green New Deal. How does that help me?
Exactly, and you got to get over the naming of things. You've got to be able to name it something that is attractive and also keep that name and be able to message what that is. Trump had what a 4-letter message.
Yeah, MAGA but that's been hammered into everybody's head.
Yep. Then he also had a 3-letter message.
There's no similar message from the Democrats.
Yep. Then he had a 3-letter message. You want to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Just buzzwords. Didn't even tell you what you're doing. He just did buzzwords. So the Democrats have to learn that messaging is key. If you look at what's in the Green New Deal, honestly, there was a lot of stuff that everybody wanted, but they couldn't message it correctly. So that's the problem, is you got to learn messaging.
The only buddy who's an effective messenger right now is Newsom. And Newsom gives a lot of people the creeps because he's tarred as the leader of a state that's a hellhole. I live in that state, and it's not a hellhole, though we do have a shit ton of homeless people, 72,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. I've been asking, how are we going to clean up the homeless people and make LA look good to the world for the Olympics? Well, the World Cup is coming to LA in 2 months. And based on how we're responding now, we're not going to clean up the homeless people. We're not going to have any solutions. And LA is going to look a little bit crappy to the world for the World Cup and for the Olympics. And that's just the way it is. And we've got a huge housing crisis in California and in the big cities, San Francisco and LA particularly. I'm on a housing committee with city government. And there's a lot of NIMBY. I'm in Studio City, and understandably, Studio City has weathered the economic shocks pretty well. We have a giant production studio, where they've made a lot of shows like Seinfeld and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It just shows like a lot of classic shows on the studio. It just went bankrupt. Goldman Sachs just took possession of the frickin' studio, and production is down by, I don't know, some crazy amount, 40%. But at least that studio is still functioning. If we lose the studio, then Studio City gets screwed. But right now it's functioning, and Studio City is still a nice place with restaurants that people come from the rest of the San Fernando Valley, and the people with houses in Studio City. They don't want a 5-story apartment going up next to their house that puts their house in shadow 8 hours a day, because there are these plans for these mini apartment buildings where you take a lot that had one house, you put up a 5-story building that has 10 units, and that throws, if you put it on the north side of the street, then all the houses behind it, put it on the south side of the street, and the sun puts the shadow coming from the south in the street, so that the houses don't get screwed over as much. But nobody nobody wants to live next door to a high rise. It causes parking problems. But I mean, that's what we need to fix California, is a bunch of these little mini high rises.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, that's what there are other countries that are taking advantage and doing something similar. I think China's doing that. I think is it Singapore that did that, or Korea that did that?
I mean, China just says we are going to throw up a building that holds 20,000 people. And it's a giant wall of apartments that's like 3 city blocks long. There's one amazing building somewhere in China that the subway just runs through it. There's a the 2 floors of the building are a subway station where you got apartments below the subway, you've got above it, and a train just goes. That's probably pretty noisy. They don't care if you have a view. They don't care if your view is of somebody else's apartment 8.5 feet away from you. You need a place to live, and boom. But we're not zoned for that.
Mm. So there are a lot of problems that we just never have taken advantage or fixed, and that would be nice. That's where the Democrat Party could come in and say, okay, we've got a plan for them. We're going to take care of, because people know it's there. Everything that you've talked about is, yeah, people know that that's a problem.
And we have a ton of space in the western half of the U.S. The western half of the U.S. is mostly empty land. A lot of it's not good for anything, and you could make that land bloom with housing and new communities. Except we don't have enough water. The water is the big, like the whole Southwest runs off the Colorado River, which is not a big river, and and there's already not enough water. So where do we get the frickin' water from? If we had water, that would be half the battle. And now AI needs water to run through its power plants.
Yep, and evidently there's studies that are saying that AI is even worse than we thought.
Like I just saw a tweet about like some AIs like chew up more. You ask, like, sometimes you ask AI a question without even meaning to. If I go on Google and I punch in some stuff, most of the time before I get any like links to stuff, I'll get what Google AI, and it's very useful to me. But I don't know how much power I'm consuming with my little Google inquiry. And ChatGPT apparently, because it gives you really good answers, consumes like 10 times as much energy per question as some other AIs.
Mm-hmm. And it's just getting worse because more people are using the video editor, and that's the problem. That's a big problem too, because doing graphics is much more labor intensive than doing, of course, text. But both are bad. But yeah.
So I'm going to go someplace where I always go, which is, I like looking at pictures of naked ladies after the rest of the family is asleep. And AI used to give you just an endless parade of pictures of naked ladies. They don't do that anymore, or they do, but now it is film clips. AI is making little movies where before it was just an image. Now it's a little like 5-10 second movie. The people talk, they move, there's even little plots, and all based on some perv who's like subscribed to the AI search, like types in 2 sentences, gets a movie. The computational burden to make that is, I mean, it's not just naked people. You can see it in TV commercials where there's a Jeep commercial where there's a guy rappelling down the side of a mountain, and there's a little thing in small print says, yeah, this is an AI actor. That costs the Jeep basically $0. If they'd used a real actor rappelling, that shoot would have cost $35,000 at least. Mm-hmm. And it's every place. It consumes power. It eats up jobs. Nobody has a freaking job in my town in production. Steve, how you doing? How are you going to save us from AI?
I was last night. They went in overtime. I got it fixed. I got to watch the week after that. Not much. I just getting used to. I'm starting to enjoy my post-political life. Today, a hard decision is what kind of margarita I'm going to have on Ohio.
We had for my birthday a couple days ago. I had a raspberry margarita.
Yeah, I think everyone's talking about the primary, like the Senate race here in North Carolina, Wood Cooper, and who's going to run for president in 28. So I got late. I was on a call. I was trying to get in, but I'm going to start doing more commentary. I've gotten to the point now where I'm just getting so tired of the national news. I'm just not following it as much. So I'm going to get back into it. But
you're entitled to take a break. You've been swimming in it for a year and a half.
Yeah. No, I just kind of put my own world. For 1 week, this last week, I was just in my own world of West Wing and Designated Survivor and 24. All my presidents were like, people from make believe, the fiction, the streaming. It's sad when you got to go stream for your presidents.
Right.
But But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I'm still an optimist. I think we're going to get through this, and we just got to get America back on track. One of the things that I thought was interesting that Neil deGrasse Tyson said when the Artemis got to the moon, he said he wished every leader in the world would go to the moon, and if they could go to the moon and look at Earth when they returned, it would change their perspective. And a former senator and astronaut John Glenn would often say that, and they would often, and I just really think that's a really ideal thing. I think sometimes we don't see. We don't take a macro view because we're so much in the game of fighting and killing each other. And I think what he said was very profound, and hopefully we can get ourselves back to a time where we're talking to each other instead of battling every single day. I mean, it seems to me today that every day is the campaign. That we have, even after the campaign, we're not governing anymore. We're campaigning and campaigning and campaigning. And that's the one thing with Trump, the president. I mean, you would think in his second term, with the term in between, that he would say, hey, the campaign's over. I got nothing to lose. I'm going to bring the country together and try to do some things that haven't been done before. And it's just like he just keeps saying, we like this campaign folks. And it's like, I wish the ghost. It's like the Christmas Carol, the ghost of President past, whether it's an FDR or an Eisenhower, or, somebody would come in, or Lincoln would come in and say, hey, you're, Mr. President, you're president of all the people, the whole country, even the people who didn't vote for you.
So the problem is that we have that idealistic view and that hope and that dream of what we should be. And that's what lost us, because we have to realize where we are.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to work from and build from, and not say, hey, we're at this plateau and this is where our ideals really are. We just got to realize where we are and build from that base, because Trump was never going to come in and unite the country. Trump has never done that in his life.
He said that his second term was going to be about vengeance. Which is it?
I mean, and I always thought, and I know I'm going to go, I'm running out of time, but I guess it was just free commentary today. I'll be better prepared. I got to get, I've been saying this for a week now. They gave me I'm still working, but I'm kind of in a relaxed mode now. Now I've got to get serious again. So I'm going to start getting in the suits, start rushing a little bit. I'm getting a little too comfortable at home. I'll be at the General Assembly tomorrow, Thursday. So today's kind of my Cinco de Mayo, kind of nursing my way back into working the next week. But, I think that, I always thought that a businessman to become president from the outside would be able to bring an independent perspective, and that this is what Trump could have brought. But I guess, he just it's the people that got him in there, or he's just not that kind of a person. And he just,
And Trump's not much of a businessman. You need a Mark Cuban in there, but it's hard to get businessmen to like legit people who are good at business in there, because they're too busy and too effective doing business. Mark Cuban takes a look at government and is like, why the hell would I step into that mess where nothing gets done, that wastes all my time, that pisses off, where I get 200 million people pissed at me.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's just again, it goes back to the idealistic view. People fell for the idea that Trump is a businessman, which he's never been. People were told that he has all these bankruptcies and so on and so forth, but people didn't want to believe it because they believed what they saw on TV and didn't think about the actual realities that TV is not always true. And so we went with the idea. Some people went with the ideal. They can't believe even now that he raped someone, even though it's been he's held liable for that. So it's just, it goes back to, like I said, we have to know where we are and build from where we are and work with them, work with the individuals where they are, and not where, hey, idealistically, this is where I have this belief and this hope. No, let's be honest about it. I mean, we just lost. Minorities just lost the right to vote, or lost their
Have the right to have their vote mean anything.
Yes. And that's where we've always been for a while, because the GOP has been pushing for that for a long time.
You guys, I gotta run. I'll be back on the time next week.
We should all run. I have to poop, and the time is our hour is over. You know, I drink coffee, and then I've got half an hour before I got to run away.
Yeah, good seeing you guys.
All right, good to see you. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Enjoy your margarita. All right. Bye.
All right. See you, Rick.